It was supposed to be temporary, just a short-term rental, a quiet apartment, and a tenant who kept to himself. But what started as a routine lease would unravel into one of the most disturbing cases no one saw coming. In the winter of 2018, in a quiet suburban neighborhood, a young woman named Ananya Mehta rented out the spare unit in her duplex. She lived alone, worked from home, and preferred a peaceful life. So when a man named Raghav Sinha applied for the apartment, he seemed perfect, polite, soft-spoken, no criminal record, paid 3 months' rent in advance, no red flags. At first, everything was normal. Too normal. Raghav kept to himself. He rarely spoke, never invited guests, never played loud music. In fact, neighbors barely noticed he existed. But about 2 weeks in, Ananya started noticing something strange. Every night, at exactly 2:17 a.m., she would hear footsteps. Not outside, inside the walls. At first, she brushed it off. Old building, pipes, wood expanding in the cold. But the sounds were too deliberate, slow, measured, almost like someone pacing. One night, curiosity got the better of her. She walked into her hallway, pressed her ear against the wall that connected her unit to Raghav's, and froze because the footsteps stopped. Then, after a few seconds, 3 slow knocks. From inside the wall, she stepped back, heart racing, telling herself it was nothing. It had to be nothing. The next morning, she casually brought it up to Raghav. She expected him to laugh it off. But instead, he just stared at her. Too long, too still. Then said, "I don't make noise at night." That should have been the end of it, but it wasn't. Over the next few days, things escalated. Packages started arriving at odd hours. No labels, no sender information, just plain brown boxes. And Raghav never opened them outside. Always inside, always alone. Then came the smell. A faint metallic odor, not strong enough to panic, but strong enough to notice. And it always seemed to come from the shared wall. Ananya decided to call the property inspector, just to be safe. When the inspector arrived, he checked wiring, plumbing, structure. Everything seemed fine, until he tapped on one section of the wall. It sounded hollow. That wasn't supposed to happen. With permission, they opened a small section, and what they found didn't make sense. There was a narrow crawl space, hidden, running between the 2 units. Not part of the original blueprint. The inspector assumed it was an old construction error. But Ananya knew something wasn't right, because the space was clean, too clean. No dust, no debris, just a narrow path, wide enough for a person to move through. That night, she couldn't sleep. She locked her doors, checked her windows, turned on all the lights, and waited. 2:17 a.m., right on time, the footsteps returned. But this time, they were louder, closer. She grabbed her phone, started recording, and slowly approached the wall. The footsteps stopped, again. Then, a whisper, so faint, she almost didn't hear. "Don't look." She ran, locked herself in the bathroom, and called the police. When officers arrived, they knocked on Raghav's door. No response. They forced entry. Inside, everything looked normal. Too normal. Minimal furniture. No personal photos. No clutter. But in the bedroom, they found something disturbing. A section of the wall had been modified. A concealed opening, leading directly into the crawl space. And inside that space, they found evidence. Camera equipment, recording devices, and dozens of memory cards. Every single one labeled with dates. When they reviewed the footage, the truth became horrifyingly clear. Raghav had been living 2 lives. During the day, a quiet tenant. At night, he moved through the walls, watching, recording, observing. Not just Ananya, but previous tenants, neighbors, anyone he could access. The crawl space connected more than just one unit. It ran through multiple walls, like a hidden network. For months, maybe years, he had been watching people, without them ever knowing. But that wasn't the worst part. One of the memory cards contained footage that stopped abruptly, mid-recording, followed by silence, and then a file labeled Entry Attempt. The footage showed him standing inside the wall, right outside Ananya's bedroom, watching her sleep and reaching for the panel. That same night, she heard the whisper. Police launched a full investigation, but Raghav was gone. No ID, no digital footprint, no traceable past. It was like he never existed. To this day, he's still missing. And the crawl space? Sealed, permanently. But sometimes, late at night, neighbors claim they still hear footsteps. At exactly 2:17 a.m., And this time, they're not inside the walls. They're outside,